Hello and welcome to a brand new season of The Big Debate, live from Johannesburg on S3 and the SABC News channel 404. We're also live tonight on YouTube and TikTok. My name is Tembekile Mkhototo. So, in 1994, the ANC promised a better life for all. 30 years on, in his 2024 State of the Nation address, President Cyril Ramaphosa told us the story of Tintswalo, that's democracy's child, born at the dawn of our freedom. Tintswalo was a beneficiary of the policies of the democratic state, including social grants, free healthcare, education, a house, and even a job. But do you have a decent house, a good, secure job, affordable quality education for your kids, for instance, and even high hopes for your future? If so, then it appears you might be in the minority in South Africa today. Around half of the people in this country still live in poverty. So how lucky then was Tintswalo? For every Tintswalo, how many Dikeledi's do we have in this country? Those are people who are still crying basically for access to a better life. And you ask why, and what can we do about the crisis? Well, joining us to discuss this tonight, we're joined by Zuko Kotlimpi, who's an ANC National Executive Committee member on the committee responsible for economic transformation. So apt that he's here with us today. Wanelisa Xaba is a gender activist and decolonial education scholar. We also have Azar Jamin, Director and Chief Economist of Econometrics. Mametla Sebei is President of the General Industries Workers Union of South Africa. And then Sarah Smith is the economics editor at the Mail and Guardian newspaper. We're also lucky enough to have Badile Hotla, who is arguably South Africa's favorite and longest-serving statistician general. BEE Commissioner Tsidiso Madona, Bitumelo Molete of COSATU, and William Shoki, editor of Africa is a Country. In the audience, we have the born-frees themselves, the Tintswalos and Bodikeledi. We have activists, trade unionists, community leaders, and young entrepreneurs from right across the country. Welcome to you all. That was a mouthful, but you at home can also have your say during this hour. Does Tintswalo reflect your reality is the big question. But before we start the discussion, have a look at this.
The story of the first 30 years of our democracy can best be told through the life of a child who was born at the dawn of our democracy called Tintswalo, grew up in a society that was worlds apart from the South Africa of her parents.
Like Tintswalo, Vusi was born at the dawn of democracy in Qwaqwa in the Free State. He later attended a no-fee school and his varsity was funded by NSFAS. He is currently an engineer in training at Lesedi Nuclear Services.
Looked at myself from the shack I grew up in, you know those buckets when it rained, you hold the bucket on the bed so that water doesn't get through you. And then I realized I can also do this thing. But when they organized a program with government to take us to university, and for the first time I could leave the Free State, I was like, wow, what is this? This is the place I want to be.
But not everyone relates to the story of Tintswalo.
Let me tell you about the true story of Tintswalo. Tintswalo is a 30-year-old who's unemployed, uneducated, and probably is going to die because of the high crime levels.
Fezeka lives in Lindokuhle, an informal settlement in the south of Johannesburg. Fezeka and others in Lindokuhle have to collect water from a nearby pipe. They rely on a small solar panel owned by one of the community members to recharge their phone batteries.
Ama-challenges esibhekana nawo lana oqala nje ukuthi asina gas, asikhona ukucharger, so uma ungena battery ke vele ke yabo ezinye izinto awukhona ukuzenza. Asina address, masifuna ukuyofuna umsebenzi, asikhoni because ayikho address awazi ukuthi uzothi uhlala.
In the East Rand, we find 25-year-old Sphiwo Kuhle Hadebe.
Angifundi, angisebenzi currently because bekuvaliwe eThembisa Plaza ngelooting. Manje benzile balungisile abantu bathatha abantu abakuma political parties if we ANC we EFF. If ever kune emergency situation like umuntu kumele ayothola umntwana or ulimele or uyagula ama ambulances awangeni lapha mo phone ubasho usho i-address yakho bakutshena futhi bakutshena kahle ukuthi asingeni lapho asifinyeleli futhi angeke size cause i-high risk kithi uyibuza ukuthi wena ohlala kuleyo ndawo leyo bona bekuyi-high risk kubo wena kusiyi-high risk na okusho ukuthi wena uyisilwane na.
What are the social programs that Tintswalo accessed? Child support grants, free education, housing, healthcare, and job support. Do most South Africans have access to all these, or was Tintswalo just very lucky?
You look at the proportion of the people who constitute the middle class in South Africa by race. Amongst whites, the average is about 55%. Amongst Indians, it's 50%. Amongst coloreds and blacks, just average 23%.
Le free education abathi khona angikayiboni cela igcame ibonakale yenzakalele wonke umntwana yonke youth from a crash until youth umntwana like abe ne free education.
Well, I told you earlier, we're lucky enough tonight to have Zuko Kotlimpi from the ANC, a member of the Economic Transformation Committee, in fact, with the ANC's National Executive Committee. And Zuko, as you listen to those young people who say 30 years on, they've heard the story of Tintswalo during the State of the Nation address, yet their reality is so different. We've had 5 changes in roadmaps from RDP all the way now to the National Development Plan. Why has none of that worked for them?
Thank you very much, Tembegile. I just think for context as a start, President Ramaphosa was actually the first person to concede exactly the points that they are making in the State of the Nation address. He makes the point that whilst Tintswalo has had the progress that we are talking about, there are millions of young South Africans who are unemployed, who are living in poverty, and a couple of other social ills. Just one other explanation related to what was shown in the insert. If you listen to most of the people who are the Digelities, to use your metaphor, it's people who are living in informal settlements. And one of the anomalies of post-apartheid South Africa is that there's been a growth in informal settlements. And there's something important for us to understand about that dynamic. One of the weaknesses of the post-1994 period, right, and I'm making this concession so that there's no sense that there's any denial, is that whilst there's been a growth in the preparedness to roll out the social policy interventions that we're talking about, there's been a weakness in getting the industrial economy to sort of get the people that we need it to absorb. And that is one of the major issues. The growth of informal settlements is a product of South Africa's constrained industrial profile, where people must migrate inward towards the old metropolitan areas in search of jobs. Of course, right, the capacity of those areas to produce the number of jobs that are required has been declining over time.
But much of that should have been foreseen, should it not? Especially when you consider the history of apartheid spatial planning and how that already had put certain people at a disadvantage, i.e. the majority black population, who even for those, the issue is that there's such extremes, Zuko, where you've got people who've been able to succeed and those who've simply not been able to.
And that is correct. So if we do an analysis of South Africa's economic and industrial growth performance from 1994 to now, you're probably going to agree that you have a period of 2 halves, right? We were on an upward trend up until the 2008 global financial crisis. So there was the capacity of employment creation and labor absorption that was higher before 2008. One of the major problems of the post-2008 period was that we sort of shifted gear into sort of an anxiety mode of trying to rescue what existed as the economy at the time from the clutches of the global financial crisis, and there was not much investment in real industrial growth on the other side. And that is part of the issues that the ANC manifesto now, driven by us, the Tintswalos, of course, who resonate with this problem, is trying to address. We say it's got to be industrial policy if you're going to deal with the problem.
And we'll go into the specifics of different issues affecting people, but I want to bring you in here, William. The ANC government will tell you that, it's doing the best that it can within a period of 30 years, yet you've got a housing backlog north of 2 million. You've got an unemployment rate that covers about 7.4 million people in this country. Should we cut them some slack?
I don't think we should, to be frank. I think that in the post-1994 period, there was a real opportunity for the African National Congress to implement policies that were socially redistributive, that were focused not just on how to alleviate poverty, which it has done by some stretch, but to try and enhance economic participation And I think if you look at South Africa now, with the large wealth inequality that we're suffering, with the large income disparities that we're suffering, that clearly hasn't materialized. And I think that periodization that Zuko talks to in 2008, that was also the beginning of widespread.
Is it that we did not spend enough, or that money went elsewhere?
As I was about to say, if we think about South African democracy as a period of two halves, the first 15 years and the next 15 years, 2008 is significant not just because of the global financial crisis, but also because of the beginning of state capture and patronage, which incapacitated the state's ability to successfully deliver social services, which the ANC takes.
Elisa, I want to talk about students for a moment. I remember about 10 years ago, there was the massive movement on our campuses, Fees Must Fall, it was called. The government, even the Higher Education Minister, Blade Nzimande, will point you to the ANC government's willingness to move in that direction, to cover the missing middle. NSFAS has spent a lot of money on young black poor people to try and get them there. Why is that not good enough?
Well, you know, the posture of the ANC is always, we were trying, you know, the global financial crisis happened, but I think what we need to understand is that Cyril Ramaphosa will say that Tintswalo is the child of democracy. But I would argue that Tintswalo is a social experiment of a negotiated government. And so we need to think about South Africa as a nation state like a carnival. And inside the carnival, you have white people frolicking and having a good time. And then you have the ANC as the security guard at the gate. And in specific times, you will get your Tintswalos walking in through the gate. But what is required for us when we go through the gate is that we need to not tell the truth about what's happening outside of the gate.
Okay. We'll come back to that later and talk about transformation, etc. As I want to come to you, have we given business too much of an easy ride when it comes to building the country that we want to see post-1994? We talk about what government has failed to do, but has business met its social and other responsibilities to the people of this country?
There are two types of business. There are the large corporations that are the result of many years of exchange controls where the money couldn't leave the country. And there are small businesses, and the latter have taken a lot of strain. And if there is any way of actually employing people in their hundreds of thousands or millions, it is to develop small businesses rather than to concentrate on big businesses who have formed a cushy relationship with the government and organized labor, and the rest, small businesses and the unemployed, are left to fend for themselves.
Sarah, has the government of South Africa, the ANC government, has it, as I is suggesting, somewhat cozied enough too much, in fact, to business that it's unable to push it in the direction in which it needs to go to achieve the goals set out in the National Development Plan, for instance?
I think certainly the government's alignment to big business, not small business, has damaged our kind of macroeconomic policy kind of full view. We don't have a view of macroeconomic policy because we always have big business telling our leaders what to do, basically. And that means that our true north, our compass, is not going in the right direction. And at the end of the day, who benefits? It's big business. It's the elite.
Mamet, business will tell you their priority is to make a profit. Why should they care when government is failing? Why should they go above and beyond to help?
Because it's a byproduct of their policy. You see, you've got to look at what happened, right? We characterize what happened in 1994 as a counter-revolution in a democratic form, where the negotiated settlement not only tied but integrated the ANC and the black or aspirant black capitalist class it represents into monopoly capitalism. And the policies that the ANC has pursued since 1994 have facilitated unprecedented transfer of wealth from the working class to the poor. And you just have to look at everything that they've done, right? What you see in terms of lack of investment. I mean, the crisis in this country, right? It has to do with the crisis of lack of investment, both all the industrial playing in terms of investment at production side, but also at reproduction. And what do I mean by that? The ANC has failed to invest in a public infrastructure essential for raising the level of social productivity of labor, education system, energy crisis, water, the roads, the railway system, all of that is collapsing. And in turn, with the poor level of productivity and the falling returns on investment and productivity, we have seen a decline on capital expenditure in expansion of manufacturing, and in fact, a decline that has led to a massive deindustrialization, job loss.
Your assessment, Mamela, is going to drive all of us to drink tonight, so I'll give you a chance to respond later. This is the big debate. We're going to talk more about education, housing, transformation of the economy, ownership, when the big debate continues. Don't go away. Welcome back to the big debate on 30 years of democracy and the story of Tintswalo. Vusi Shabalala is a trainee nuclear engineer from the dusty streets of Kwakwa in the Free State. Now, if ever there was a person who fits the profile for Tintswalo, well, that's Vusi, and he's here with us, in fact, on the big debate today to tell us more about his experience. Vusi, if I can ask you to stand up for us. You describe yourself as someone who has benefited, right, from the schemes of this government since 1994. Do you think that happened naturally or you were lucky?
I don't think I was lucky. I think I end up to it. I think I worked hard to meet it. And I also think that the opportunities were out there for me to go out and grab them. For one, I started using NSFAS, I used the NRF, and I used the energy SETA. And I always went out, looked for the opportunities, so the opportunities met the person who was looking for them.
And what about the other people from Kwakwa who are maybe your age? Did they have the same story? What are they doing now?
Some are doing internships, some are working, some are not benefiting equally. See, the thing about Kwakwa is this. We don't have like your ESCOM, so people can dream about working for them and saying, I'm going to do artisanship. Sasol is not there. They can't get internship for the railways. All the other opportunities, they say, you need to have an address where the opportunities are at for you to become an artisan or to get something or even apply for bursary. The only way for my people to escape the poverty is for them to move to Mpumalanga or somewhere, ask a relative for an address, change the address so that they can qualify to most of the programs and most of the bursaries that are out there. You see, the thing about NSFAS alone is that it doesn't guarantee you job after finishing. But if you get a bursary, big companies offer bursaries. Therefore, those kids who has bursaries, they secure good places in good companies. When you are done with your NSFAS, you will have to look for a small company somewhere because the big opportunities, they are already somebody's going to enter graduate training because he's on the program of that bursary. You don't have that address, you from the shacks.
Thank you, Vusi. I'm looking for Siphiwe Kuhle, actually, who we spoke to. Where is she? I'm looking for Siphiwe Kuhle. Where is Siphiwe Kuhle? Fezeka? Fezeka and Siphiwe Kuhle are supposed to be here. I'm just struggling. There she is. Let me actually walk across here, Fezeka, because we spoke to you. Fezeka, you've been here. If I can ask you to stand. So you've been listening to what the panelists have been saying so far. Why do you think that you have not had the same luck, shall we say, as Uvus?
Okay, it's because ngicabanga ukuthi ingoba mina ngisuka emakhaya, maybe yena he's from a better place than mina engiqhamuka kuyona.
So ubona singayilungisa kanjani?
Maybe ugovernment engaba neqiniso kubafundi.
Uthi uzuko uhulumende uyavuma ban they've not done everything that they can, but bayazama. Does that give you any hope?
No.
A short, clear answer. So, Fezeka Zuko says, for those who may not have understood, Fezeka says she believes she's had a harder time accessing services, some of the services that benefited Vusi, because she comes from a rural, more poorer area. But a more pointed response when I asked her if she believes that things will get better, or if she believes government's concession and what it says is the need to do more to improve a situation like hers, her answer was a simple no. Zuko. What then say you as a young person in the ANC?
And then the additional point she makes is that the government, so she wants us to be
honest.
This is the point that I'm making. South Africa is a country of uneven outcomes, even for people from the same baseline. Compare someone from a village to me. When I was born, there was no electricity in my village. I went to a mud school. That's when I started grade 1. But by the time I exited the schooling system, that school had been built. There was electricity in my village. There's water in my village now. But that is not the general story of all villages in South Africa. And this is the point that I said we are conceding. There has been progress, but it is not universal progress across the board. So you do have people who are Zuko Kodimbi from a village, and you have a person who's a Fezeka from a village. And I also made the point that people who are in informal settlements in South Africa's metropolitan areas are mostly from rural areas because of the South African migrant labor systems. May makes the point that South Africa has a problem of industrial policy. Of course, he says it's a crisis of government. We can debate that point. Okay. We'll still debate that point and enlarge it. But here's the problem. Ari says, as I says, the problem is that government has chosen the side of big business. But if you ask big business, they accuse the ANC of disempowering them to work in the way that they do because the ANC insists on a minimum wage. And that the ANC's labor regime that it insists on is discouraging government. So that is also a dishonest argument on the part of big business in South Africa. You do have an investment strike in South Africa.
Is government and business dishonest? Being dishonest?
No, I'm not being dishonest. I am telling you that South Africa has an industrial underdevelopment problem. And when big business is asked to account for it, they say it's because government insists on a minimum wage, insists on labor laws that disempower them from hiring and firing at will. Okay. And we are prepared to be on the wrong side of government on that argument. Okay. We will insist on a minimum wage, we will insist on a fair labor practice environment as part of that industrialization agenda. But if the argument is that government has shifted to the side of business, we've got to interrogate that in detail, and the claims must be made.
And I want us to deal with that when we come to transformation. I want to come to you then. We've been talking a lot about youth unemployment, poverty, lack of education, housing, piped water, etc. Zuko says, progress is being made, yes, not fast enough. What does the actual data tell us about what has been achieved and where the gaps remain?
Well, no, thank you very much. It's a world of two halves. If you look at 1994 and move towards 2011, you'll realize that certainly South Africa made big strides in services, water, sanitation, electricity, free education at primary level, and so on. That is recorded, it is true. By 2022, almost 95% of people had electricity, but they didn't have electricity. And that part was government made to make sure that nobody has electricity.
How so?
It's load shedding.
It's load shedding. And the government was in the driving seat. When we
Interesting you say that you say government was in the driving seat. A few days ago, the former president, Thabo Mbeki, said, well, load shedding was engineered from within Eskom. It's not because they as government slept on the job. Is that dishonest?
No. President Mbeki talks about 2008. I'm talking about the current
latter years.
Then it was only 3-4 days. This load shedding is sustained for a very long period of time that destroyed industry, that made children to read under candlelight. People removed their 12-202 burning coal because there was the promise of electricity. When that was withdrawn, they are left with nothing. Now, let me come to the issue of education. It's the most painful. While you would see that at primary, children actually got universal primary education. You move to secondary, they drop out. So out of the 1.2 million children that are born, only 600,000 of them will go and write matric, which is a commitment that government or constitution and everybody says basic education must be achieved. It's only achieved by half the number. And those who actually manage to go to university, it's only 250. Now, if you have 250,000. Now, when you look at the progression ratio, and this is something that I thought will be screened here. When you look at the progression ratio, it's disastrous. I mean, it is a monotonic decline for all black people because the funding of education at university is this one of nitpicking, ignoring the social setting of black people.
All right, I'm trying to see where equal education is because I want to hear from equal education. There you are, you work a lot in this space and you've been fighting for the basics to be done in the right way. What has been the human cost of the failure to do that? If I can ask you to stand up, please, sis.
I'd like to agree with our panel member here. Our experience of Tintswalo, or rather in this case, Dikeledi, is that it's mostly Dikeledis who are being produced as opposed to Tintswalos. Our panelist member here from the ruling party did mention that he is a Tintswalo. And I'd like to put it to the audience that he's a Tintswalo not because of the government that is currently ruling, but in spite of the interventions that they have created. They are not... If we look at the throughput rate in basic education, only about 60% of those children make it through to matric. They pass matric. And if you look at the reasons why they don't actually make it to matric, you can look at in Limpopo, for example. You get school learners who are riddled, or rather faced with having to go to schools that don't have water, reliable water supply, faced with pit latrine that they actually have to relieve themselves in. It's quite problematic.
So it's all linked, isn't it?
It is all linked.
Thank you for that. You're watching The Big Debate here on SABC3, S3 and the SABC News channel. So all our problems 30 years into this democracy still very linked. When we come back, we'll touch on something that Zuko said earlier. Is South African business on strike? This is The Big Debate. Welcome back. You're still with the big debate on 30 years of democracy. Now, if Tintswalo or any young South African had managed to get a good education and graduate with maybe a matric or even a degree, the chance of getting a job remains slim. Even those who try to set up businesses, for instance, say they're struggling to compete against huge companies established under apartheid, which are still dominating the economy. Have a look at this.
Poverty and limited resources, these are the remnants of apartheid that continue to shape our economy to this day. South Africa is home to over 62 million people, and yet the economy is in the hands of a few elite who control key industries and shape business decisions. A Mamelodi-based business, Tosh Detergents, has somehow managed to find its foot on the door of big retailers, but big brands are not making it easy for the new kids on the block.
When we first listed with one of our biggest retailers, we were allocated 5 stores to start off with. One of the leading brands decided to mark down their price to match our entry price. And funny enough, it was specifically on the 5 stores that we're in.
Meanwhile, in Capital Park, Ready Chopped Veggies is on the verge of possibly shutting down.
Over 35, you can't really get funding, but then the question is who's going to assist us?
Well, let's speak to Lufuno Rasweswe now, the owner of Tosh Detergents. And Lufuno, your story was actually quite interesting because you're saying you're trying your best to make your own money because, going to the job market is simply not working. Yet the way this economy, the structure is set up, you're unable to compete. The bigger boys are shutting you down.
Yes, I think the major challenge is that when you look at our major retail stores and when you look at our government, they use a one blanket approach. So it's like a one-size-fits-all approach in the sense that they don't consider us as businesses. There are things like compliance that the big guys already have, and we still need to come up with funds in order to be able to fund our businesses and to be able to have businesses that run. We need resources. They keep telling us that you need to employ more people, but how do you then employ or create employment if government is unable to assist you with resources? They tell you, go out there, look for the market. You find the market and you come back and tell them, we now have a market. Now what we need is resources so we can fulfill orders, and they don't come to the party. But they keep telling you that start your own businesses. We will support you and we will back you up. But
thank you, Lufuno. I want to, if you can sit for us, Botshelwa, I want to talk to you because you're also a small business owner, but your story, in fact, is a bit more dire, if you will, because you're actually on the verge of shutting down your veggie delivery business. Tell us why.
Well, I was, but the people of South Africa, not the government, assisted me with keeping my doors open. And I think the one thing that we also need to focus on and have more conversations with the government is that they need to maybe tame down a bit with their compliance to small business, because it's very hard then to penetrate into the market if we are not compliant. But then the other thing, again, is that if I'm a black young woman who's very easy to the eye, and you go to the government, so the gatekeeping sometimes is not even the government, but it's the people in those positions in the government.
Are you suggesting, you say young woman easy on the eye, are you suggesting that the people who run these processes, or even just pen pushers, expect something, let's say sexual favors in return?
Yes, they do. You go there, you produce, you're basically compliant, your product is that good, and instead of them giving you the contract, they promise you, I will give the contract, but let's go meet in the hotel. Why are we meeting in the hotel? Why can I not sign the contract in the office?
Thank you. So, a few things I want you to respond to, Zuko, there, based on what Lufuno and Botshelwa are saying. Thank you both, ladies. And what Botshelwa said there at the end is worrying because she's not the only one who said it. We heard it earlier when we went to places like Tembisa, where the thing about people in power using those positions to sexually exploit the poor in this country keeps coming up. Secondly, SMMEs, we're told, in this country are supposed to be the next big thing in terms of job creation and economic growth. We even have a ministry responsible, yet she had to rely on other people to save her. What does that say about government's understanding of the problem?
Okay. Let me first deal with the point she was making about the exploitation of young women. It's the most abhorrent thing that could possibly happen. And we do have that problem of people in positions of power and authority who abuse that positionality to extract favors that should not even be on the table to start with. So that's something that cannot be defended by anybody. That's the start. The second one about the relationship between compliance and small business, they're also correct on that one. And I think that's the point that as I was making. If anyone who has read the ANC manifesto now will realize we make the point that part of the big problem that we've had since 1994 is that you've been running economic policy that is not based on industrial policy. And what industrial policy tells you is, for you to grow the economy, these are your drivers of growth and therefore SMMEs. So your entire policy spectrum must be designed in order to enable them to thrive. But what you've had since 1994 is an economic policy or macroeconomic policy framework, which is what you were saying, that does not target those drivers of growth. And what we're trying to solve now is to build a policy framework that favors those ones who are going to be the ones who are pushing for growth. And but
it's been 30 years.
And it's been 30 years, and now...
We need another 30.
No, we were not waiting. This is the point that I was going to make. She also makes an important point that government sometimes does not have the scale of capital required to provide as seed in order for small businesses to thrive. And that's an objectively correct point. That's an objectively correct point, so it's a twofold problem. It is the size of the funding that government has on the one hand, but also the compliance framework that people need to meet in order for them to qualify for that funding.
I see a hand over here.
And that is one of the... I see the hand as well. I see the hand.
Okay, let's let him finish. Let's let him finish.
The only way you're going to understand what we're thinking is if you allow me to speak. So if you're going to cut me off, you're not going to get to understand what I'm trying to say.
Let's finish.
And that's objective.
Let's allow him to finish. 20 seconds.
So the point that I'm making is that on the score of the compliance related to accessing funding and on the score of the compliance for small businesses, to compete with big businesses, that is correct. And that has been because our economic policy was not organized around a robust industrial policy that promotes small businesses. And on that front, the ANC manifesto is addressing itself to essentially that point.
Let me come to the BEE Commissioner, Cyril Ramaphosa. When you look at even the latest report on transformation, even among listed companies, right? Black, women, everyone who falls under the previously disadvantaged category still does not even make up 50% of what is happening at the top of those businesses. What is the problem when we've got all of this policy, law that says, actually, we're supposed to move in that direction, but we're not seeing it 3 decades on?
I think we have to avoid a narrative of doom and gloom. I believe that there are inroads that have been made by black people. Before 1994, I could barely count 5 black business people that I knew about. Today, you probably know dozens of black people, billionaires.
The complaint is that it benefits a select few, so it's not an even spread. I think that's the problem, and we talk about it not being doom and gloom, but for someone who has to take a taxi to leave this studio tonight, it's a very different reality from those of us who will likely drive home in a German engine, for example.
Yeah. No, absolutely. The policy provides different pathways to empowering. It's not one size fits all. He was speaking about corporates providing bursaries. That's part of the skills development program of the PEE.
Okay, I'll give all of you a chance to respond.
There is also enterprise and supplier development. A lot of corporates are identifying companies who are integrated as part of their supply chain. We need more and more of that. As I spoke about concentration, the closed value chains, market access. We have to use both BBB legislation and competition legislation to open those value chains because they are currently closed. These are network of old school, closed to entrepreneurs who are looking for market access to grow their businesses.
Okay. William, I'll come to you, sir, later in the second half. Very quickly, in response to that, does that explanation make sense for where we are?
Somewhat, but I think what is fundamentally misguided about thinking and putting too much of our eggs in black economic empowerment is that it's premised on the idea that if you put black faces in high places, that's going to trickle down to the rest of the country. As recently as 2019, the World Bank released a report that showed that 10% of South Africans own 90% of the country's wealth. And the idea that if you change the faces of that 10% to make it more black and make it less white is somehow going to benefit everyone.
So good old window dressing it is.
Precisely.
Okay, William, thank you for that, William Shoki. When we come back, we'll talk solutions and take some hands from the people in the audience who I can tell you are itching to have their say tonight. This is The Big Debate. Don't go away. You're live with The Big Debate on 30 years of democracy, and we're still asking, is Tintswalo real? How do we make her story real for millions more people 30 years into this democratic promise? Send us your views via social media and on WhatsApp. Now, we're going to hear now from people in the audience on what their message is as far as this country's present and its future. Yanni Rousseau, I've got you with me. You were itching to go earlier. What did you want to say?
Yeah, indeed. The earlier speaker made the point just before the break that the government lacks money. This is the ANC government that spent 250 million rands on Kandla. This is not a government that lacks money. This is a government that has no sense of spending priorities. This is the same government that spent 35 billion rands on SAA, which is a vanity project. They should have given it away. The thing is not flying. This government is in vanity projects rather than busy with the people.
Thank you, Yanni.
So stop telling us you don't have money. Get your priorities right.
I want to hear now from the Khulumani support group. You've been very vocal about the state of this country, also quite hurt because some of you were actively involved in the struggle for a better South Africa. Sitting here tonight, uziva njani, ma'am?
Ndiyabulela ukulifumana elithuba lokuba ndibe phakathi kwabantu abangaka abazokuthetha ngesimo se-South Africa after 30 years. Singukhulumane singama-victims nama-veterans apho amalungelo wethu ahlukunyezwa bathi ngesilungu human rights violation by apartheid government.
Just shortly now, comment.
Into endivuyisayo kukuba sizomanyelwa. Silapha yabona njengoba silapha sinewari kuba ugovernment wethu ugovernment onke amabhadi wethu akakwazi ukuthini ukusondela ebantwini amamele enze izidingo zabantu. Sihleli silapha nje sinkhulumane size sathatha inyathelo lokuthi sincama ubomi bethu singogogo nomkhulu sashiya imizi yethu nabantwana bethu sihlale e-Constitutional Court sina 6 months lalapha sivuka pha sithini siya protesta sicela ugovernment azophendula ngantoni sifuna i-reparation
Okay.
ubuzo uthi why i-government iyathi emveni kokuba ithathe i-democracy
Okay, ma'am.
iyayistop indaba yokuthi i-redresse yenze i-reparation yenze i-justice kubantu abahlukunyezwayo
Enkosi, ma'am.
apartheid.
Thank you. So, what Mamma Rasha was saying, what she was saying is that as the Kulumani group, what they've been doing, in fact, is basically staging a sit-in at the Constitutional Court. They're victims of the brutality of the apartheid government. They want some form of reparation, but also they're quite disappointed because they feel this government, the government of today, the democratic dispensation, is too far from the people, and they want it to come closer. I want to hear from Black Sash very briefly, if you can, in 30 seconds, Buti, and then we'll wrap with the panel with your responses. What do you make of what you've heard here this evening? Are we on the right track?
We were in the right track, but now what we are seeing, it is the reversal of the gains that we had. You said it is not a doom and gloom, but if you look at the state currently, you see the closure of NGOs that are providing to the Tintswalos in the rural areas, the looting of the feeding scheme in KZN, where now children are going back without food. So corruption needs to be addressed severely.
All right. We're going to get responses to that, and I'll let you respond at the end because you're our de facto government rep here, government rep this evening. Elisa, I want to start with you from what we heard, and I want to pick up on what Black Sash was saying. When you talk about corruption, for example, it's not a victimless crime.
What's your question?
I want you to respond, perhaps, your take on what we're hearing about how children are being affected when feeding schemes don't work, when corruption creeps into the system and adds to the suffering of the poorest.
I mean, the thing is, 2 points is I want to focus on is these people are working together. Like, I don't want South Africa to be bamboozled. The ANC and white monopoly capital are working together. And they're going to do this thing of pointing fingers while the ANC stays in power and while they exploit and loot slave labor. But what I also want to also say is that, you know, it's like the thing that Lufuno was saying, I think is very, very important in that her government was almost closed down. However, it was the people of South Africa who supported
Can we just do something very quickly? We're going to take a quick break. We're going to assist Umama from Kuluman, Mamna Marashia, who I think is not feeling too well. So if maybe we can just find a way to help her out so that we can attend to whatever she's experiencing. If we can get help with her, please. And then Elisa, we'll pick up with you in a moment. This is the big debate. Once we've sorted all of that out, we'll wrap. Last word from the panel when we continue. Don't go away. Welcome to the big debate on 30 years of democracy and the story of Tintswalo. We're nearing the end of our program, part one, that is. Just to remind you, we'll continue for another hour, part two, which will be live on YouTube, Facebook, X, and TikTok. Just look for the debate or the Big Debate SA handle on those platforms. Now, before we went on the break, you may have seen that we had a bit of a medical emergency. Mam Noma Rashia, who was feeling rather overcome after recounting her frustrations with the government of today and her suffering under apartheid. I can tell you that we've been able to take her out of the studio, and there is a team attending to her. The other ladies from the Kulumani group have also gone out to be with her, but it appears nothing too serious, at least at this stage, but we are getting her the help that she needs. Now, in this last 5 minutes of the program, let's give all the panelists a chance to wrap, and I want to start with you, Masadiso, section 27. Give us your take on what we've heard here since the beginning of this hour.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
So I think the views that we share as Section 27, we share what our comrade from Black Sash has said, is that there's a threat that any progress that has been made since '94 is being regressed, because as much as we say whether the question of whether government has money or not, what we're seeing is over the past 10 years, they've been spending less money on education, on healthcare. So what we're seeing, like, yes, our hospitals are underfunded, they are understaffed, and we have unemployment, we have doctors who are sitting at home, even though they're qualified, nurses who are sitting at home, but there are no positions that are available because they say there's no money left. And so this measure or this approach to not staffing and not considering the human rights of the people in this country is really just going to regress the progress that we have made.
Thank you, Masadiso. Kosatu, I want to hear the view from Labour, because oftentimes government and the private sector trade blame, but no one wants to take responsibility, or Zuko has taken partial blame, shall we say, collective responsibility. What's Labour's take?
Thank you, Temegila. I think it's really more on the industrial policy that Zuko indicated lacks in the country. And without a proper stern industrial policy that is able to drive the economy, we will not be able to create jobs. And we will not be able to keep jobs. And these would be jobs that are sustainable. So that's very important that we work on ensuring that we evolve our industrial policy and our labor laws, actually. Because, Temegila, if you look at the electioneering right now, wants to decentralize the worker rights that have been driven by the LRA, the PCEA, and the EEA, which is the Employment Equity Act. So it's going to be very important for us to identify where it is that the gaps are in relation to pushing workers, but also creating employment for workers and young people. And as a Tintswalo myself, born in 1990 in Soweto, I'd like to just indicate that, look,
briefly,
these policies are there, they exist, they do benefit actual people that grow up to be people like me representing workers across the country.
Sarah, William, 20 seconds each, one thought each, please, as we conclude.
Well, I think industrial policy is certainly very important, but it works as a package of macroeconomic policy. And if our fiscal policy and our monetary policy is not working together to grow this economy, then, as Masadiso says, we're going to just continue to regress.
William?
I think the other side of that equation is social redistribution. South Africa achieved political democracy in 1994, but we're undemocratic economically. So I think creating a society where the many benefit rather than the few, i.e. political and economic elites, is the only way we can create a more equitable society.
Mamedra, if you can manage it in 20 seconds.
Okay. We need a revolution in this country. Capitalism has failed, and there's no solution on the basis. The ANC has complete lack of understanding for the political and economic architecture of the system that they are managing. The reality is, the crisis of industrialization is a crisis of the poverty of the black working class. You cannot have an industrialization in a situation where 10.3 million people are unemployed, many of them without any income. Secondly, the workers that are there, 75% of them are earning below 6,000 rand. Half of them on minimum wages. Where are they going to get the money to buy the kind of manufactured product that the industrial capacity must be able to produce? And when you then have...
I did warn Mameda that you might struggle with the 30 seconds. We're going to have another hour. I'm going to give you another shot to finish your thought. Zuko, let me come to you, in fact, as we wrap up this hour. You've heard what everyone has said, very critical of the ANC and the government that it runs. In 30 seconds or less, how do you respond?
All of them, they are correct when they say we need better policy coordination. And what Mamitlu is saying, we need industrial policy in order to deal with the poverty of the black working class. And part of what industrial policy has to do, if it is successful, is to help us deal with the inflation problem, which is the point that she's making, that if you don't have a coordination between fiscal policy and monetary policy, industrial policy is not going to work. And one of the big problems in South Africa is that government has been managing fiscal and monetary policy as standalones and not as part of a broad industrial policy framework, which is what we are proposing as a solution to deal with all these problems that are here. And all the other, my Leonard said there, my point was not that government does not have money completely.
Briefly.
The point I was making was that it does not allocate sufficient capital in order to boost SMMEs in the way in which we need industrial policy to get us going. I was not saying there's no money at all. I was just saying, so far, the allocation of capital for investment has not been enough in government. But
we do have to go, Zuko.
A case to answer as well about...
We have to go, that's it. We're going to continue with this conversation with Zuko in the second hour. Make your way to YouTube, X, as well as TikTok to hear more of what Zuko and the other panelists have to say. We're still talking about Tintswalo, democracy's child, and how Tintswalo has fared 30 years into the freedom of this country. This is The Big Debate. Thank you for watching. You're gonna have, I gotta remember, that was the I'm not an author to you, right? I'm not an author to you, right?
So my name is Relebogile and I'm in the streets of Bramo trying to find Tintswalo, Cyril's Tintswalo. But maybe, let's see if there's real Tintswalos or people don't, it doesn't matter, let's hear from the people. Do you know who Tintswalo is? No. Bani? Bani? Tintswalo. Bani? Tintswalo.
Umuntu oyi-1 Tintswalo. So that umuntu othola 350 uDintswalo kahle kahle.
So Tintswalo represents the 30 years that the ANC has done all these amazing things, free housing, education, water, electricity.
There's so much that was promised and yet so little given to us.
Bakhona abantu abafuna ngoNSFAS abasawukhokheli. Although vela abekho baningi kangako ngoba even nama-budget akhathwa every day, but bakhona abantu abafuna mahala bangodoctor manje bangobani because of what uDintswalo lo wokubenefit.
Citizens, empty promises, salwa ngexesha le-apartheid salwela idemocracy ukuthi ibe khona. Tata uRamaphosa ngomnye woDintswalo ngoba i-liberation asinayo, i-freedom asinayo, and bona sibabiza kule category yama-victors ngoba sabaweza.
And if you're seeing me, watching us online now, is continue with the second hour of the big debate, focusing on 30 years of democracy and the story of Tintswalo. Now, when we wrapped up that televised hour previously, Zuko from the ANC, Zuko Kotlimpi, was talking to us about everything that we've heard here today as far as people's dissatisfaction with the way in which the ANC government's legislation has been able, or failed, in fact, to make a difference. And that's the problem, isn't it, Zuko, where the legislation is great. South Africa is praised for having wonderful policies, but unless it's everyone's reality, we're going to come back here every year.
And it will be, we are correct, Thembekile. The Black Sash people and Section 27 are making an important point that actually we're now sitting in a position where even the progress that we've made is under threat. And there's a variety of things that are at play. The budget cuts that she's talking about in terms of education and health and so on, they pose a serious threat to these things. And on the other end of it, that means if we don't have an industrial policy that grows our economy sufficiently, those cuts are going to keep on eating onto what we've done. So that's a point that is valid. And part of the reason why we sound like we are putting all our baskets on the industrial policy case is essentially to make the point that if you don't grow the economy, if you don't create employment for more people, if you don't create more SMEs and more businesses, you are going to have shrinking state revenues for you to be able to finance the social policy package that you've had so far. So that point...
Is that the future of the ANC?
I'm the future of the ANC, I'm in front of you. So
how much though, I like that you've gone there, how much is the future of the ANC, young people such as yourself, how much are you able to actively push for change? Because the face of the party remains old, right? When people think of the ANC, just even now, we're seeing people who are past 65 being rolled out to convince people to make a choice for the future.
Okay, so the part about rolling out the elders is really about your elders exist, so you do want to bring them out to talk to the people about what the family represents.
I'm talking about centering the young voices, so to speak.
The point about centering the young voices is that for the first time since 1994, the young ones in the ANC were able to actually kick the door and get ourselves elected into the National Executive Committee. We were able to get ourselves elected into strategic positions of policy making. I'm deputy chairperson of the ETC of the ANC. And one of the things that we were able to get the ANC to accept is that without a robust industrial policy, all the progress that you've made, you are going to lose it. And that has been accepted by the elders. So the ANC is accepting, I'm not saying we are the silver bullet to all these things, but we are making progress internally at that level. And the conversation that is coming out about what should be the policy priorities is reflective of our voice inside the ANC.
So Black Sash, let me come to you then, directly behind Zuko. Are you willing to give the young people of the ANC a chance? They will be able to deliver a better government?
Yeah, what we are looking for, our aim is not only to give the ANC youth only a chance, but we need leadership that has got moral, that has got a vision, that understand what is happening on the ground, that relates to the challenges that people, it's not about being given that position because you belong. We need leadership that is collective, capable, as you said.
Lisa, I see you nodding. Let me hear what's on your mind.
I mean, it's really very dishonest, because people like Zugo who are young in the ANC, all they're doing is working their way up to the ranks so that they can get the 1.2 million and sit in parliament and do exactly the same thing. They're just being groomed by the older people in the ANC. So, I mean, it's very, because he, in the beginning of during the TV part of he says he comes from the rural areas. He studied in a mud house, and he says he's Tintswalo. He agrees with Vusi. For me, psychologically, what does that mean? For you to grow up like that, but still work for a machinery that is still producing people like her. What does that mean for our country?
If I may answer, and I do understand when Elisa is holding on to a cynical view about us, including our bona fides.
Is it unjustified?
I think it's unjustified, and I'll tell you why. I think it's unjustified. I've taken the position that I've got to put my shoulder on the wheel and try to work for progress. If she believes that a cop-out is better, that's the stance that she's taking. But it doesn't mean that because I'm in the ANC, by default, my moral credentials are suspect. And the point that she's making is that because Uzuko is in the ANC, it essentially means Yena, because she's in the ANC, her moral credibility is far higher than mine. That is not a valid point. But we can make the cynical argument that those who are not in political parties are morally superior. Okay. We can't defend it sustainably. It's intellectually dishonest. It is emotive, yes. It gets people going and clapping, but it is not. But
the problem,
an acceptable point.
I suppose, it might be unfair to paint everyone with the same brush, but the problem becomes when people who profess themselves as being morally upright, willing to do the hard work, don't necessarily purge the organization of those who've proven themselves to be completely opposite.
And I think that's the test, and that's the point that
why is it not happening?
What the Black Search Comrade is making is a valid point that it's not just about getting Uzugo, who's a leader in the ANC, and leaving him to be. It is about the capacity to hold him accountable as well, and to ask difficult questions about what is that you are doing in order to get progress.
Okay.
And that is acceptable. What we are doing, I made a point firstly about what we've done at a policy level. Some of the things that we, the young ones, have insisted the ANC has got to do is that it needs to introduce a more rigorous leadership assessment framework for who it chooses to represent the ANC and who gets to be elected in the ANC. But I'm not trying to sell a manifesto for us as ANC members inside the ANC. I'm not going to say, no, this is what we're doing behind the closed doors. But the test is on the extent to which, when we are given an opportunity, we could be able to make progress. By the way, the idea that people must be politicians only because they want a 1.2 million rand salary or otherwise is also not a helpful approach to discourse. Someone has got to be a legislator. Someone has got to be a political party leader. And if
Elisa is not convinced.
And if no, I'm not saying she must be convinced.
What I'm saying is, when you get into those positions, like the young people like yourself, then if that's your argument, then you say it is immoral for me to earn 1.2 million while people are sleeping hungry in this country. Then you go, you say, I am going to use the same health services that are not working, that during COVID in the Eastern Cape took old people in wheelbarrows to the clinics while there was a global pandemic. Then you use the same public transportation that young women in our country are being raped on. Then you use that, you go into but you don't do that. You don't do that. You go there and you become inaccessible and you talk about industrial revolutions, you talk about revolution, but you don't do the real work.
Okay. I think in 20 seconds, just a quick one. I've noted a few hands on either side of me, and we're going to come to you, or both sides actually, but I'm going to take you, Mameka, first, because you wanted to say something earlier.
The point I'm making is this. The catastrophic social conditions of the masses of the working class in this country flow directly from the fact that the ANC not only inherited, but actually entrenched and perpetuated the structure of monopolized economy, right? And the BE program that they're talking about has not undermined that. It has not broadened ownership. It has actually reinforced that monopolization. And that is the reason that every policy that they have taken has actually exacerbated this crisis. Let's take an example of a tax policy. When they took over, the cooperate or the tax on corporate profits was 50.5%, right? Now, they've been reducing it to 28%, last year to 27%, right? That has left enormous wealth in the economy concentrated on an ever-dwindling, tiny elite in society.
Right.
On the other hand, that is the money you need to build houses. The housing backlog is worsening from 1.5 million housing units that they wanted in 1984 to 3.7 million. That is the reason that the cost of education is worsening, both in terms of quality of people with quantity of people with access, but also quality of the performance of the entire the health and all the things. And just on this other point, when you look even in terms of the point that have been raised with regard to small businesses, is not only just that these industries are over-concentrated. It is the fact that even their policy, look at their interest rate policy, right? Their interest rate policy of fighting inflation is in such a way that it actually decimates. Every time that they increase interest rates, it decimates the entire layer of small businesses, of middle class and working class people in terms of the housing, the cars, and what asset base they've accumulated which get repossessed, and in that sense, they have been set back, and that's the reason for a growing wealth and income inequalities in this country.
Thank you,
That is
Mamed. We're lucky enough to have some very young people in the audience, school children. So let's give them a chance to hear what they feel. They're not even 30 yet. How do they feel about the coming 30 years?
Greetings all. I go by the name of Lesedi Madisha. I feel so bad about our current ruling party, which is ANC, for the upcoming 30 years. It already didn't have something for us, those who were not there, to be convinced or motivated to believe in them. Already, I'm coming from a township known as Tembisa. I'm located from Mashimung, and I'm schooling from Bitimeleng Secondary School. It's one of the advanced schools from township. Since we are facing load shedding, our school is trying by all means to provide better education for us. It even came with a plan B using solar panels. Now, the ANC, they see that young, brilliant, and hungry people for education are coming with solutions. They are now taking water from us. So my question is, are you... So now my question is, are you providing that equal and free education that you gave Tintswalo? Or what are the requirements for me to live a wealthy and a healthy life like Tintswalo? Thank you.
Okay. We also have a young lady. What do you want to say briefly?
Okay, hi. I want to add on the NSFAS parts. Okay, NC is like, by like they're helping us with free education and stuff, but there are bridges that like stop us from getting where we want to go. And then at the end of the day, NSFAS is like, it's helping us, but when you apply for NSFAS, you have to pay for a registration fee for year 2.8. Onganayo. That's why I apply NSFAS. Maramelu patalu 2.8. Onganayo. How is it working? At the end of the day, we end up owing NSFAS. As fela marasiam o anchani when we applied for funding. Esnganayo. But like it's said, sorry guys.
Let me go to the other side of the room. I'll come over here, and then I'll start with you, ma'am, and then you, sir, and then I'll come to you as well, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vanessa Makhatsu, and as a grade 11 student, I am very intrigued about the Tintswalo matter, in the sense that from the panel, all I heard were reasons, but I never heard solutions in order to break or eradicate the cycle. We are tired as a youth of South Africa, and as future generations to make this country better, we want to know how we can eradicate the cycle for life. Tintswalo is just a matter that diverges the country from the actual problems that it faces. It actually highlights the minority of what the country is going through, and it perpetuates inequality, unemployment, and more problems such as poverty. So we'd like that to change.
Okay, thank you. Sir? Bambe.
Okay, sanibonani igama lami nguSimpiwe Chonco ngisuke SDI. Shuthi mina I'd like to stress, since sesikhuluma ngama solutions yabo, I'd like to stress upon the point education. Ukuthi like most of our problems that we face could be eliminated if like we could decolonize education. If like I could throw you back kancane. So apartheid was not like something ukuthi it was like here to tickle a black child or the black female. It was here to destroy, to distract, to demolish. So this thing angeke iphume easy. So these people in power won't be giving us education to liberate ourselves, to free ourselves from these chains and bondages. So my only solution is if like the education could be decolonized, suited for the black child, because Can
the Rihanna fans sort out the situation?
Yes, as Tina, the black child, this is like we should be giving our gifts as figure now to this world. But education, the way it's structured, it's some empty vessel, as if they should be pouring into us. We came here with things. We need to change the education so that it's suitable for the black child, so that he'll be able to solve their own socio-economic problems that we face.
Thank you. You've won one Elisa's heart. She was nodding throughout. I think you should be in Zuko's chair.
So Usisi here, she spoke about being a woman in business and trying to find help from the government, right? You didn't directly answer what she said. what then are you guys going to do in terms of me as a young woman trying to get funding from government and then be asked to give sexual pleasures in return? How is that going to be eradicated? You are busy telling us our problems like he already mentioned, but you're not giving us any solutions, which is the problem that we are currently facing right now. As a young woman of South Africa, I'm unable to continue empowering other young women because I'm not given a voice or a change when it comes to the government. It's time maybe we rule out the ANC and give some other people that are really to give us change a chance.
So, we've heard from the youngsters. I'll take a senior here, and then I'll come back to the panel. Mama? Wena ufuna ukuthini?
Ngibongile kakhulu. Ngifuna ukusho ukuthi sithanda umbonga uNkulunkulu ewasikhiphe ebugqileni be-apartheid sangena ke manje ku democracy. Kodwa akubonakali kungazi ukuthi sikhululekile. Asikhululekanga kahle hle. Ngicela ukusho ukuthi ngibuza ubhotilo osebenza lapha na kuwa.
uZuku.
uZuku. Ngicela ukubuza mfana wami ukuthi ucabanga ukuthi wena ngaba kuye kwaba kuhle ukuthi TRC after iyenze unfinished business ivale ingasaqhubeli ngaphandle. Namhlanje kunabantwana bethu abalapha ngaphandle kuthiwa abonyawupe babizwa amagama. Ingaba zakube khona iAmerican, ngaba zakube khona eSidimeng. Iviolence lo iqhubekile eSouth Africa. East, North, West, South kubhiza abantu bayatoyitoya. Uhulumeni wethu so distant nabantu. Uhulumeni wethu umuntu ongathanda abantu, kodwa uNkulunkulu uthandile lelizwe. uNkulunkulu uthembe nina ukuthi nizokwazi ukuthi nisebenzele umphakathi waseSouth Africa. Anina ndaba nabantu baseSouth Africa. Kumanje size saphuma sanqama sayolala esamendeni sabantu abadala. Kufe abantu abayi3 omunye uzoyongcwatshwa kule viki. Noma sekushoniwe kuthiwa kushoniwe abantu. Uhulumeni wethu umuntu othanda ukuthi abantu batoyitoye baphume batoyitoye kufa abantu bese khana athenda abantu. Kungani nenza kanje? Na uNitswalo lo obekhana zovela after iTRC iredressile. iTRC kwakufanele ukuthi uhulumeni lokuqala uhulumeni kaBamandela benza kahle ukuthi abantu baseSouth Africa after bama victims ba redresswe. Ngaba if it must fall azange ibe khona. Abantwana bethu bayafunda zonke izinto ngabe ezi-addressiwe nina navala. Noma sesiza kini sizonitshela nibona ukuthi thina ngoba asifundanga. Sifundile izami zafunda ku grassroots level sizokwazi ukuthi nifinisele.
So I'll come back to the audience, but I want the panel to respond so that we can keep track of where the conversation is. Multiple things, naturally, Zuko, that you would have picked up on. Ugogo complains about just the TRC process and whether that was complete, right? And how that may even have contributed to what we're seeing in society, the culture of violence, the trauma that comes from that, and how it has other effects in society. But again, the feeling very much is that this government has moved further and further away from the people, especially those who helped elect it in 1994.
No, umama unyanisile ndifunda into kuwena ngokuthetha mama uthetha inyani. Lo mcimbi we-TRC wona bekufamba zange uhambe ngale ndlela uhambe ngayo. Yinto efana uba iyamanyelwa. Ndixolise nangale nto yabantu abaswelekileyo kula mcimbini we-Constitutional Court. Yinto ebekufana uba nyani iyaphendulwa and ndiyacinga uba ndizawukwenza nama amalinge uba kubekho abantu abayonimamela abanisabele uba kanti niye kona hlala phaa ngolaa hlobo. Kuloo ndawo hayi ndifuna kona mama loo ndawo ndicela ukuyixolisela ayiyonto ingathi lentle. So the other points that Umama was making, those are valid points. Right. What she was saying about the relationship between the post-1994 democratic dispensation and the reparations discourse that she's talking about. It could be in terms of the TRC prosecutions. It could be broadly on other areas of reparation. So there, I accept fully the point that she's making. I agree with that.
I want to ask a question to Dr. Lohla and you, Azar. Let me start with you. Can we legislate this country out of poverty?
I don't think we can legislate this country out of poverty. I think the way we can get ourselves out of poverty was mentioned by one of the speakers there. Education, education, education in the right areas that are needed by the people. Too many people are being educated in areas where there is no market for their services. And you end up, at the moment, I can just point to the fact that out of the 1.2 million students that begin school every year, 3%, that's 30 to 35,000, end up getting 60% or more for maths in their matric. What is needed for people to start producing, especially in a technologically advancing society, in a society that is wanting to industrialize, is to develop the capability in technical areas, and that is absolutely critical.
Right. Wanelisa, and the gentleman, as I was referencing, you were nodding while he was speaking, and he spoke to basically a deconstruction, a decolonization of the system as a means to move us forward. How would you see that happening in reality?
Well, I think it can happen it's just a pity that I was interrupted earlier, because what I wanted to say, is that the way that the education is structured is that it's creating, zombies, if I can say. So you get in at grade 1, and by the time you, the 250 finish matric, they have been taught to be obedient to the system, to the nation state. However, as we know that during apartheid, it was people like Omama who helped liberate this country. And so one of the things that we need to really remember as a nation is how we have, the mass has power. These people are few, and these people are few. But as South Africans, we have, and I think that's part of decentralizing power, that's part of decolonizing, is to say that we as Black people can self-determine. We have the vision for the type of society that, and it's not going to be technological, because that is killing and pillaging our earth.
Let me come to you, Dr. Lehutla. I asked the question earlier of whether we can legislate our way out of poverty. Azar says, well, how we can do that is through education, but when 40% of the children who start in grade 1 are unaccounted for to some extent, well, or are not in the system, let me say, by the time their cohort reaches matric, is that pie in the sky?
Well, let's not create binaries. You need legislation. But you need action on that legislation. The legislation that basic education is mandatory. But the actions towards that are zilch. There are other things in society that have to be resolved. I mean, my analysis of the situation is 60% of fathers say they are married against 30% of mothers. Those who have been involved in sexual activities as women that are aged 15 to 49, they stay for 4 years with a partner, whereas males stay for 15 years. In that space, children get born. Now, when you have 4 years and 15 years, how do these children that are born manage their way through university? When you get to students who said fees must fall, the political parties came and destroyed that movement completely. The students were saying fees must fall, and they understood the task of nation building. In South Africa, there's nowhere whatsoever that you can build a nation except at the university, where you have all the races almost in critical mass proportions. Now, when you start saying we'll pay for the poor and not the rich, the Afrikaners have built their own university. When is the national building? So we have a system and a government that cannot think.
Are you suggesting a new social contract?
Well, social contract and social compacts are done on the basis of targets. What are the targets that are there in the manifestos? It's just words in there. There are no targets whatsoever. And now it's the euphoria of elections. After that, people are looking for going to hide in the union building and run away from the masses of the people. You need the targets. And one of the things that I have to say now is that business approached government in 2020 with clear targets. Government, because it doesn't have the system of aggregation, ignored what business presented to them. And what have they done now? They've given some ESCOM, they've given some rail, and they have given away crime. Mark my words, we are entering a situation where when projects are given in that kind of way, on the basis of those things being important, when they actually have just been urgent. I mean, it's agency. ESCOM was destroyed by government, created agency. And then out of that, they are trying to repair that which they created. That is allowing for Super Zondo Mark II. Mark my words.
Okay. The young lady behind, Ndadalo, you wanted to speak from earlier. What did you want to say? Please stand up so we can all see you.
Sure. Sanbonan, igama lami nguLondiwe ngowakamntambo. And I think I'm going to say one thing so that, I don't spend 15 minutes here on the podium. I think it's incredibly weird for me to sit in a conversation where the ANC, and I'm saying the ANC Zuko because I know that this is not just your posture, it is generally the posture of the ANC, where they tell us that they are currently creating manifestos and policies to deal with issues that they have created or that they have exacerbated. I think that's incredibly weird. For 30 years, you haven't been telling each other these manifesto things that you are telling us now. For 30 years, so for 30 years, you haven't implemented these things that you are telling each other now. It's weird to be in a democracy for 30 years that has an incredibly young population, to not be building universities, to not be building to not be prioritizing skills for young people, necessary skills for this particular economy. I think it's just incredibly disingenuous on your part and generally tone deaf on the part of the ANC to say to us that now, 30 years later, they have the solutions.
So, Zuko, when trust in the government of the day, and I say government of the day because we're going to an election on May 29, we don't know what that's going to produce, but when trust is so eroded, what do people have to hold on to with this government?
Just as a starting point, Tembi, this sort of robust discourse that I'm sitting through is necessary and welcome. So we rely on getting insights from people who are not going to be holding back. So this is acceptable. But the point I was going to make, Mamdambo, is that the ANC has one manifesto, and I always try to make this point. The ANC has one manifesto, and that manifesto was written in 1955. It exists. It's the Freedom Charter. But what we do per election cycle, no, but
let's let him finish.
When I say it is one manifesto, I am saying it is what defines the program that the ANC says it is bringing to the people. What we do per election cycle, we don't invent a new thing. We only write areas of emphasis for the next 5 years. That is what the manifestos are. So it's not as though we don't have these conversations throughout the 30 years. We're only having them now. We've been having these conversations beyond the 35-year line. So to make the point that you are asking, Tembegile, when people have doubt about what we can do and whether we have the capacity to do it, the obligation is on us to make a compelling case and to convince South Africans, to listen to them, to respond to their issues, and for them to see that we are able to respond to.
And when you go back, how are you going to give feedback on this session then?
The feedback from this session is not actually unique to what we've been getting from people on the ground throughout the elections campaign. So the sentiments we're getting here have been repeatedly said by South Africans throughout the election campaign that we've been through. So whatever reflections I give, it is consistent with what I experienced yesterday in Claremont when I was talking to people in KwaZulu-Natal. Yeah. So the points are not new. The points have been made by South Africans. The people who are here are reflecting sentiments that South Africans are reflecting.
Okay, I want to come here and take questions. I've noted, I'm going to take 2 more hands. 3 hands on this side, 3 hands on this side. We still have the rest of the hour.
Hi, my name is Mampa Mufugeng. I'm from the SDI.
Let's settle down, please.
My name is Mampa Mufugeng. I'm from the SDI. I'll just give a brief. Our vision is for resilient and inclusive cities to improve the lives of the urban poor. We are a non-political organization. So our plea today, please involve us, include us in your policy decision-making, because your policy implementations, they affect us on a community level. Do it with us, not for us. We've been doing a lot of work on the ground. Like I related more to the story of the informal settlement. We see people invading land. It's because we see that our government does not care about us. So the issue of the security of tenure is very vital and important. Include us. We'll show you that we have resources that will work for us and better our lives and the communities.
Thank you so much. There was a hand over here. You go, sir.
Thank you. So my question will be directed mainly on the business side because we know the ANC has failed dismally. The question then becomes, no, for real, my question is 3% of the youth in South Africa actually own land. What is the business doing to make sure that we are getting that back? What are you doing to redress the fact that we are getting an income that our forefathers were earning at this day and age? What are you doing to improve our lives as the business community? Administratively, to myself over here, you are saying you are here and you are doing work, but I promise you, you can go online, you will not get assisted because your systems are failing. What are you doing administratively to make sure that the youth that is using technology that is current is able to actually get the services they need?
Okay. You?
Greetings. You have a beautiful manifesto. Almost every party has. For the past 30 years, you had that manifesto. Now, what are you doing to actually get the youth involved? Because our perspective is needed. You're saying we are the power, we are the future of this country, but then where was our perspective when you want to drop the passing rates in the basic education? Where was our perspective of making all these implementations that do nothing for us, but do more by multinational corps?
Okay.
You come from one of these informal rural areas, but don't you find it uncomfortable that you have to drive kilometers just to get to school? Why haven't you built universities near your areas?
Thank you. I see you guys. Actually, I haven't come to this side. Let's hear you, sir. Please stand up. And then I'm going to come to that section because I've neglected you. I've taken 3 hands. Yeah. I said democracy. You go ahead.
On the question of young people, we want young people to participate in democracy. But you're a young person that's in the ANC. So clearly the issue isn't young people in politics, it's young ideas. Because what you've done in the ANC for the last 30 years isn't a flaw within the ANC. To go and say, young people must go and fight in the ANC to fix the ANC, you're not going to fix the ANC. Because the ANC isn't corrupt because I'm mistaken in the ANC. The ANC is corrupt because the ANC is working how it's supposed to. 30 years ago, you said that the ANC works for poor people, rich people, big business, workers. That's impossible. You can't work for everyone in society. And what the ANC has done is abandon the working class and uphold big business.
We've got 6 minutes to wrap. Let's make a deal. We've got 6 minutes to wrap. The clock is the clock. So let's not do that. So if you're all going to speak, you all need to commit to being brief. Do we agree? Sisi, 20 seconds or less.
My question to the NC Rep is, what more should South Africans do for the proper and effective implementation of these government policies? Because some of these government officials see these policies as a quick way to make a quick buck for themselves at the cost of other South Africans? Or is this Tintswalo story a way to deflect attention from these issues that we are facing in South Africa?
Thank you. 20 seconds or less. Puti?
Thank you very much. My question is on the commitment of ANC to the initial Freedom Charter and the commitment to land specifically. So legislatively, what has the ANC done to get the realization of Section 25, which aims to redistribute land? And because right now what we are seeing is that land is still in the hands of the people it was in, right? Back when it was colonization and apartheid. White people, yeah. So what has been done? And also, why is the stance of the ANC so afraid of making it explicit that expropriation of land should be without compensation? If you can answer that question, I'll be okay.
Okay, briefly. There are some young people here from a school in Pretoria. Where are you? Where are my Pretoria people? Is it over here? Are you from Pretoria? Puti, you've been wanting to speak. 20 seconds, sorry. Hold on.
Our government is ignoring the fact that our youth is being doomed in South Africa. We are dying from drug abuse, teenage pregnancy, alcohol abuse, and all that. Why is it so simple for people from outside our country to come and control our own country and kill us, even kidnap our young sisters and brothers. What are you doing as a government so that we can be protected? Because you are saying you are protecting us, right?
Thank you.
So, Suyankata.
Well, I said we have 6 minutes, and I said we're going to wrap in 20
Okay.
seconds.
Ngizoyiqedelela.
So, no, I'm going to take you up there because you've been wanting to say something in 30 seconds. Phakama bhuti. There's no time.
Greetings to all. Mina ngicela ukuthetha lo tata we-ANC. Tata we-ANC anithethi ngomhlaba. Xa ningathethi ngomhlaba nivale ama colleges. I'm coming from Transkei. There was Nurses College, Teachers College, nazivala. Then sabuya seze eGoli. Anisinika umhlaba. Silwela umhlaba singahlala semjondolo, niyasibopha, niyasibulala. Come to the point ithetha ngumfana ngaphesheya. Kunomuntu wangaphandle ngoku ogebenge umuntu ongumama ophosela khona last night. And siyafona akuzi umuntu.
Okay.
Amapolisa asebenza nabantu bangaphandle abadla ikhebhuli nezamazama.
Okay, so for those who didn't understand it, that was a representative from Abahlali Basamjondolo, right? And say if you feel targeted because housing is not coming, but even when you speak up, even when you protest, you're targeted even by the police in your communities. I did say we're in the last few minutes of the show, so we're going to wrap. Elisa, as we round up, I'm going to allow you to go first, Azar, and then we'll come to you, William, and work our way around the room.
I just wanted to talk about the issue of the university and free education, free decolonized education. I think, you know, it's difficult to say that universities are going to be the things that are going to liberate young people, because I work in the university and my PhD was on young people who have been kicked out of the university. The university, the foundings of the university was for white people to come and learn creative ways to further subjugate black people. And it is still doing that function even today. And so if you're saying young people must come into the university, what you essentially are saying is that they're coming into a system where they're going to oppress their own people. I'm going to keep on saying this. This is my third great debate. And I've been having the same conversation over and over and over again.
But is the change happening from within? I mean, you're in the space. Are you seeing those wheels turn?
There's no change. There's only a reinforcement of white supremacy. This is my third debate, and I had the same conversation. And I say to disenfranchise, invest in the ANC. And we have collective power. The ANC did not liberate us. We liberated ourselves as people. We need to organize ourselves.
Okay. Azar?
A lot was achieved during the first 15 years after 1994. The country's economy, however, has been deteriorating, and service delivery has been deteriorating since around 2009, 2010. And it is no rocket scientist to work out that that has coincided with the era of state capture, whereby the rulers of the country started just worrying about their own pockets rather than about uplifting the people.
William?
I think it's clear to say that the ANC has failed. This seems to be the majority sentiment in this room. But I think the difficult question for all of us is, are the political alternatives any better?
Okay.
And the truth is, I don't think many of us find them inspiring. So I agree with Elisa that until and unless all of us build a new mass political movement that is driven by workers, that is driven by the unemployed, that is driven by women, that is driven by the rural poor, that is driven by the landless, then we're going to be having the same debate no matter who is in power. So I think it's clear that we need to create a society that is driven by the majority of people, not just the political and economic.
And we'll bring that up when we have the political parties from next week to debate this upcoming election. And we'll touch on what you and Elisa have just been saying. Sarah, parting shot?
Well, the young lady asked earlier, what is the solution? And I think the first step in that is to be honest that it's not a problem of implementation with the ANC government. It's a problem of policies. We can't be in a space where every time the unemployment rate falls by 0.5 percentage point, we tap ourselves on the back, because that's just not good enough.
Right. Are you good? Final word?
Okay, so I think the final word that was what I've gotten from this conversation is that we really need to bring the power back to the people. And now that the ANC, like you're here, you've heard the cries of the people, you've been on the election thing, we should move not just in the euphoria of the elections and promises, but look forward to a world where the policy is actually driven and centered and foregrounded by the people of this country.
BE Commissioner Tshidiso Maduna, your commitments as we conclude?
Thank you for this opportunity, and the feedback is much appreciated. I'm just going to make one point about growing the economy. One of the reasons why our economy is not growing is that it does not draw from the full potential, contribution, talents of all South Africans. BEE is a law that says, black people, you have a right to be in the economy. We need more of you in the economy. We need more of you to be employers. And we need more of you to be in business so that we can solve our country's problems, as it were.
All right.
So those ladies who are entrepreneurs, we hear your concerns. We know that there's still challenges in terms of access to markets, access to finance, and just the support system to help businesses, black businesses.
Mr. Lehotla, 20 seconds.
Yes, on the 20th of December, I proposed that in an article that postpone the elections because they are not going to solve our problems. Now, of course, that was not possible. We need now to agree that we'll come to a discussion around how we solve our problems. Right now, one of the most disturbing things is that the government is being praised for having surplus, when actually people are dying and are not in hospitals.
Right.
That primary surplus becomes an applause for the World Bank and the IMF and everybody. What kind of society are we?
On that note, let's bring you in, Mamet. 20 seconds, please. We're out of time.
In the interest of monopoly capital, but also black capitalist class, the ANC has devastated the majority of the working class in this country. They have destroyed state-owned entities. We need to fix the railways. We need to fix the roads. We need to ensure that we have a mass public works program in this country to build clinics, to build hospitals, to ensure that we have enough schools that are well equipped. We open the doors of learning for young people, education is free, and all of these things.
Right.
But we are saying that the ANC has to go. Capitalism has to go. None of these political parties are going to go. Okay. We need the mass political party of the working class to put the working class in power, not only politically, through nationalization of key sectors of the economy on the basis of democratic control and management.
The ANC and the capitalist class have to go. In 20 seconds, are you going?
We are not going. Umami insists on this thing one Elisa of lumping me together with white monopoly capital. I don't accept that proposition. The ANC is working to win these elections.
Okay.
And of course, it's intention.
Wait.
That's the reason we're contesting elections. We're contesting to win, but I do want to make the point that the sentiments that are raised here about renegotiating a workable and viable social contract between government and the people is a valid proposition that we accept. We need to broaden the discussion and have more people talking. And I agree with the Statistician General. Some indexes that people pay attention to as markers of development are not helpful. The objective of government is not to achieve a budget surplus. It is to achieve a balanced budget that is able to provide answers to the problems of the people. So on that front, we all agree. And that's an ANC position.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you to our panelists and thank you, audience, for interacting as you have tonight on this first edition of the new season of The Big Debate. From me, Tembekile Mkhototo. See you back here 6 p.m. next Thursday on S3, SABC News Channel, TikTok, and YouTube as well. Bye-bye. Take care.